What is going on, YouTube? It is the Crowdfunding Comics gang. Myself, the brain of the mainframe, and Mr. Billy Tucci. Billy, how we doing tonight, my friend?
We are doing great, my friend. How are you today?
I am fantastic. It is our third and final show of this week.
It is, yes. 3 shows, not too shabby, especially with all the craziness that's coming on next week. But next Saturday, we're going to have a show. I'm going to try to live stream it from San Diego with my panel. We have a crowdfunding comics panel. Nile, you will be missed, my brother.
Yes.
But we have a great guest lineup. If I can't stream from there, depending on their internet, what I will do for sure, Nile, is that I will Dropbox it to you, and maybe you could load it up, for Sunday or something like that, or even Monday maybe, depending on what day you want to do it.
Yeah, send it over and we'll load it up right on. We'll broadcast that, edit it up, and get that panel going live. That's going to be a crazy panel. Who do you have on that panel?
We have on that panel, we have myself. I am joined by my pal from 7th grade, Stephen Peros, who just launched his Kickstarter today. He's a very well-known screenwriter in Hollywood, worked on a ton of movies. Then we have Brian Miller, who is a colorist extraordinaire who's had a lot of crowdfunded books himself. Then we're followed by the one and only Doug Tenaple, the crowned prince of crowdfunding, with his over 525,000, I think he is, with Bigfoot Bill. Then, of course, we have Jimmy Palmiotti, who I like to call the godfather of crowdfunding.
Yep.
And then, of course, my pal, Brian Polito, the man, the myth, the legend. So it's going to be pretty fantastic. But enough about me. Tonight, this is our 33rd episode, Nile.
33, man. We're getting up there.
Yeah, we are. This is our rolling. This is our rolling rock and roll episode, number 33. And tonight, crowdfunding crusaders and centurions all across the globe, we have a devilish guest in our midst. Tonight's guest has stepped away from scribing in his YouTube channel to hunt down some soul suckers, conduct some expert demonology, and send those evil bastards back to where they came from. So without further ado, or don't, can we please welcome American hero, Mr. Douglas Ernst.
Doug, how we doing, man?
Intro. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm very grateful to be here.
Yeah, man, we're happy to have you, dude.
We were blown away, right, Nile?
Oh, yeah. The art was great. I don't even know if you know, I mean, we had you on as a crowdfunding call-out a couple episodes ago.
Oh, very cool, very cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now we've come full circle, Billy.
And we've got him on. And again, this is one of the things when we see it right now, and we're like, oh, my God, we got to have this book on.
Yes.
If he would grace us with his presence. And thanks goodness he did. He did for sure. Douglas, congratulations on your first successful campaign. You have 3 days left, but you've already raised over $20,000. And you've got 558 backers. So well done, buddy. Well done.
There was a period of time there when you first kind of launch, you never know how people are going to react to things. You have an idea in your mind. You think it's cool, obviously, but it could just be like the womp, womp, womp.
Yeah. So before we get into Soulfinder, Demon's Match, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell those out there who might not be familiar with you.
Sure. So most people that are going to be tuning in tonight, for the most part, they're going to know me from my YouTube channel, which I have. I've covered comics and quote-unquote Comicsgate for the past couple years. Before that, I had a WordPress blog going back a decade where I covered the intersection of politics and popular culture. Did a lot of comic book stuff there, a lot of Spider-Man reviews. And then in my normal day job, I work for a newspaper in Washington, D.C. So that's when I get off work, it's kind of like my creative outlet, since for the most part it's like political stuff and media bias and defense issues, and it's just a creative outlet that I've always kind of liked to turn to.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the thick of it if you're working on that. I mean, right? It's got to drive you crazy. I don't know. I'm not going to talk politics or anything, but the negativity of just every single day. It's like, how many times can you have the boy who cries wolf, or the gal that cries wolf? It's just constant, it seems. And I can imagine working in that. So I think your comic must be a nice little escapism for a little, you know.
Right. Well, sometimes people are like, well, is your book going to be political? And I was like, no, my whole thing about comic books is I want to have fun. I want to be able to like tell adventure tales and mystery and action. And that's what I want. I don't want politics shoehorned into the story. So I was like, the last thing on my mind was beating somebody over the head with unnecessary partisan rhetoric.
Right.
And we thank you for that. There's enough of it out there.
Yeah,
so, Doug, I mean, tell us, like, so how long have you been in the realm of writing?
So writing's pretty much always been my vocation since I was a kid. I always wanted to be a writer. And then out of high school, I enlisted in the military. This is in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason, there was multiple reasons, but part of it was I wanted to basically see the world and go on adventures and be able to actually have something that I could write about after having that sort of like life experience. Mm-hmm. And so then I came back, and ultimately I ended up at the University of Southern California, and I was an English major there. And then 9/11 happened, and that sort of changed my mind on a lot of stuff. I wanted to be a screenwriter in Hollywood, basically, but after 9/11, I got more into, I don't know, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to basically be a Kevin Smithish sort of figure in Hollywood. Like, that was not what I wanted to do anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up in Washington, D.C. I went to graduate school at American University, got my master's in political science, and then I worked in a nonprofit organization for a few years, and I concentrated on young people, and in terms of, I helped to run an intern program, but mm-hmm. a lot of it was helping raise awareness about the need for a strong national defense, but doing it through like a public policy sphere of influence, and then eventually ended up at the newspaper. And so in my mind, I was like, I could help educate people about the culture through writing, but I got away from creative writing, but that was always like my first love.
Mm-hmm. When did you fall in love with creative writing? Was this something you picked up elementary school, middle school, high school?
When I was in middle school, there was a group. Basically, they picked a small group of students that they would ship them to the high school, mm-hmm. like once a week, and then they would do creative writing classes or whatever. And so that started when I was in 7th grade, I believe, 7th and 8th grade. And then when I got to the high school, it fed right into their creative writing program since they kind of knew me. And so I've been doing creative writing stuff since, middle school.
Oh, wow. And who and what influenced you growing up that inspired you to do the creative writing, or even inspired the stories you've written?
Sure. So actually, that's interesting timing. I always have comic books near me, but I mean, when I was a kid, it was reading stuff like The Amazing Spider-Man, the old Hobgoblin tales in the 80s. I liked DeFalco and Stern and Captain America. I wish they did covers like this nowadays, Cap versus Wolverine there. Avengers. They were a big influence on me. So I literally learned how to read on comic books. I've said this on other streams. My brother used to basically sit me on his lap on a little green chair and read Iron Man and Spider-Man comics to me. And I mean, I guess I learned to read from, your parents doing the Dr. Seuss thing, but in many ways I learned how to read on The Amazing Spider-Man. And so that's why to this very day, I have Spider-Man comics. Even though I'm a little behind, I still pick up Spider-Man because that's where I learned to read.
That's awesome.
That's cool, man.
Brian Pulido is similar to that too. That Brian Pulido has every Captain America, I think. I think he's missing a few, from the 60s or something like that. But he still gets in his pull list that he has at his local comic shop, Captain America. Like he gets the latest Captain America issue, and he goes, well, he's my guy, so I suffer through him, and what they're doing. I'm a completist,
Yeah, it's one of those things where the character is bigger than they're icons at this point in time, and so they're going to go through rough patches for sure. But it's just I have this sort of like love and reverence for certain characters because I wouldn't be who I was, who I would became today if it wasn't for the Peter Parkers and the Steve Rogers and the Matt Murdocks and those characters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, about you. So, what branch of the service were you in?
I was in the Army. I was in mechanized infantry. I was a Bradley driver.
Oh, wow.
And then I was also a dismount for a while. But then after I got out, they actually did away with the 11 mics, and then they kind of put them in with the light infantry, the 11 Bravo guys, I guess. But
yeah, I was 11 Bravo, so that's what I was.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, when I went in, I thought I was young and dumb, and I just thought infantry, and I was 11 X-ray. And so I went down to Fort Benning, and then of course they're like, "Well, you're going to be 11 Mike. You're going to be driving Bradleys," and I was like, "What?" And then they're like, "You're going to Germany as well." So I was like, "Wait, what about like Ranger School?" And they just start laughing at me.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you sign up for that, you don't get the chances for any of that stuff.
Yeah, that was my mistakes of my youth.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I remember the same thing too. With like, oh, yeah, get a slot to Ranger School. Oh no, you get in, you'll get a slot, you can go, and yeah, right. Well, thank you for your service, my friend. We really appreciate
thank you.
And now, do you go to the Baltimore Comic-Con?
Well, these days I'm out west. So I work for the Washington Times, but my wife got a job out here in Reno, so I'm actually out west.
Okay.
So hopefully, actually, sometime in the near future, I'll be going to San Diego one of these days. Now that I'm out west, so.
Yeah, you definitely will. You got to let us know when you do that.
Nice.
And we'll all hang out, because we were going to say we have our Scotch Con at Baltimore. And I figured if you were there, because he'd fit right in, wouldn't he?
Oh, yeah, he would totally fit right in, definitely.
Yeah,
our Scotch Con in Baltimore, Scotch Con 2019.
Yeah.
Well, I still have friends in DC, so I'm very open to heading back there anytime.
Well, you should.
Now, for the weekend.
Work-wise, it doesn't hurt to stop by the offices, in DC, and then, for you to check out Baltimore that weekend. It's I think it's the third weekend in October. The weather's great, and I think for research primarily and for work, you really should go. And then we'll get you a badge into the Baltimore Comic-Con, and then you hang out with us at ScotchCon.
There you go.
Very cool. Very
Purely
cool.
selfish reasons.
Oh, man.
So, now what we like to do, again, and we've never done it. We like to go 45 minutes. That was our goal. We always end up going an hour and a half or more, or an hour. So I like to warn our guests that please, when you feel like it's time to go or you got to go, don't feel bad. All right, just say I got to go, because we'll just talk your ear off all night. Okay? Can you hear me?
Oh, I thought you were talking to the audience. Yeah,
No.
I'm always talking about.
I'm not talking to you, Doug.
He's just mesmerized to be with the Crowdfunding Comics guys.
Yeah. So what we want to do, so we like to talk about you, for the first 20 minutes, half hour or so, and then we move on to the next thing. And I know that you write for Bleeding Cool, and Bleeding Fool. I think that's really cool. How did you get into doing that, and what's it like, writing for that?
So Bleeding Fool is an interesting situation where for roughly a decade I had a blog on WordPress, and I was doing Spider-Man sort of reviews, especially Dan Slott's run. I was saying before we came on air, I was like, he wasn't a fan of my reviews. We'll just put it that way. And so when Bleeding Fool started up and Comicsgate sort of came together, they basically said, like, hey, anytime you write a blog, do you mind if we just use the content? We could just put it up on Bleeding Fool. And I was like, yeah, I don't care. You could use whatever you want. It doesn't matter to me. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, yeah, so we don't need to, like, pay you or anything. And I was just like, no, I don't care. Like, just use whatever you want. So basically, whenever I go back to the blog these days, I know that they often will pull it and then they'll put it up on Bleeding Fool. But it originally started from my blogging.
That's cool, man. So, and I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I'll ask my question after you.
I'm just curious about, so the Dan Slott thing. Now, I don't know Dan. I remember seeing him having he was on Ethan's, I don't even know it was YouTube back in the day, Comic Artist Pro. Yeah, I think it was when Comic Artist Pro Secrets first started. Now, what is it about his work why doesn't he like you?
Well, so that gets into the start of what became Comicsgate. So roughly, we'll just say like 2008, 2009, there started to be a change with social media, Twitter, Facebook, all the message boards.
Mm-hmm.
The creators started to get, we'll say, snippy. That's like the nicest way I could put it with fans. And they started to get more and more unprofessional as far as I was concerned. So that was something that I saw on the message boards that irritated me. If you ever disagreed with anybody in a tactful way, maybe you weren't even swearing, maybe it wasn't personal ad hominem attacks. It was just, hey, I don't like One More Day, and here is why I don't like it. Right. Your comments would go down the Orwellian memory hole or whatever. The creators could say anything that they wanted to the fans, but if the fans ever kind of gave them a little bit of their own medicine, boom, you were banned. So,
really?
So that was an issue that I had. But then there was the political junk that started happening on Twitter, where if you believe in the Second Amendment, if you believe in a strong national defense, that sort of stuff, they were sounding off on all sorts of stuff that I thought was, I was like, I wanted to hear what you had to say about Captain America or Spider-Man or Daredevil or your book or whatever. I don't want to be berated or meant to feel like I'm a bad person because I believe in the Second Amendment.
Right.
And so I started blogging on that whenever some of these creators would go off on political tangents. I would say, one, you're alienating fans. You're driving people away from comic books. Whatever happened to escapism? And then I started to see it bleeding into the books.
Yeah.
Dan was actually not too bad about that. Others were. And so it was all this confluence of events coming together where it was just like, somebody needs to call this out and say, like, we're going off the rails here. Something's wrong.
Yeah. Yep. Well, yeah, I remember reading those articles and stuff. And if you see my tattoo, you know how I feel about the Second Amendment. So and it burned into my arm, into my soul. But as I, I like to look at myself as a constitutionalist. That's what I am. When someone says, "What's your political leanings or what type?" I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in all the amendments to the Constitution. And and I would, I took an oath to, many years ago, to defend the Constitution, and I still hold that dear to, you know what I mean? Oaths are like my marriage vows, that's sacred. I take an oath. I raise my hand for something that, then that's me, no bones about it. And I've run into people like that too, friends and things like that, and having discussions and, but that negativity is just something. And forgive me, Nile, bringing this up, but especially the Second Amendment really gets my goat. But no, I agree with you. There's no place for that in comics. Comics must be said your escapism. You want to,
Yeah, it was just really awkward, and that was something that I never really encountered before. And it wasn't just like the occasional, like, I don't care if somebody disagrees with me, like, that's fine. But a lot of it started to get really mean-spirited. And that's where I was like, you know what, this is, I'm like I said at the start of the show here, I've literally learned to read on Spider-Man comic books. I put a lot of money into Marvel. I was a lifelong Marvel kid. And then all of a sudden, these creators who I grew up, in many ways, they were like role models, some of them, were saying, I kind of hate your guts. Why do I hate your guts? Because you disagree with me on healthcare policy or something like that. I was just like, this is weird. You are hurting the industry by doing this.
Right. Well, I apologize to bring that in. I didn't want to bring in negativity and stuff.
It's not negativity. I think it's an interesting topic. It's not a lot of viewers out there and stuff. A lot of them don't know this aspect or this part of the industry that existed and still exists. Doug, I mean, the articles and blogs you were writing, were you calling them out on some of their things, or how was this negative energy getting directed at you?
So early on, there were not very many people that were calling this sort of stuff out. And then the other thing, it's like a multi-pronged sort of thing. There was the comics media. Mm-hmm. You could kind of tell that a lot of these people wanted to work in the industry, so they became shills, and everything was good. Mm. It didn't matter what it was. They would give it, like, it was a 9 or a 10 rating or whatever. And so there was only a couple people that would call out sort of the shilling, cronyism, that sort of stuff, and then the unprofessional behavior. So then when I kind of became known, I would sometimes show up on the message boards anyway. And then as soon as I showed up on the message boards, then it was like, okay, this is the guy. He's a troublemaker. You got to get him out of here. And then ended up being banned from multiple channels.
What a load of crap. That sucks.
And my general demeanor is exactly like I'm speaking with you right now. So it's like I'm not screaming, I'm not angry. I think I'm a pretty gregarious guy. I'm not hurling insults at people. And so it was like I was confused because I'm like, I'm not doing anything other than saying like, stop alienating me. Please treat me like a human being. That's all I'm asking for. Yeah. And somehow I was the bad guy.
Yeah. Wow. But
now, throughout that whole those ordeals you were having back and forths, was there like one creator, and you don't have to say his name, but was there someone that you truly did kind of that you looked up to that completely just it turned it around for you?
Wait, you're saying was there
like
someone when
like
I was
a creator
I just looked up to?
Yeah, like was there someone that you looked up to that fired back to what you were saying that basically now you don't think of them the same. They're not on that pedestal anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, guys like Mark Wade. And I got to be careful because I don't know about your own personal sort of relationships with people, but yeah, a lot of these guys, Eric Larson, I don't want to get into too many, but to me, basically the Todd Father, he's sort of like the guy where it's like, why can't people just be like him? He has a little Facebook channel. He teaches people how to draw. He's always nice. He's always friendly. He's like the closest thing to, in my mind, like a Stan Lee or whatever.
Is that Todd McFarlane?
Yes.
You call him the Todd Father? That's awesome. I never heard that.
Yeah, that's floating around here and there, and I always liked it to just call him the Todd Father.
Yeah, and he's a real sweet guy. He really is. He's a really sweet, gregarious guy like yourself. And I agree with him. But he absolutely right. So then they would come after you though because you're like, well, why not be like Todd?
Right. Try to nobody could be Stan Lee, obviously, but try to capture that sort of spirit in terms of your relationship with the audience, trying to build a sort of like a camaraderie with your audience that will last you. That was the other thing. So they were saying like, oh, you guys are just old or whatever, and we need to relate to these 18-year-old activist kids or whatever. And I was like, okay, at the time I was like, I'm 30 years old. Yeah. I'm going to be buying comics until I die. If I live till I'm 80 years old, I will still buy comic books. Why would you just throw me to the curb? Yeah. I actually have disposable income in my 30s and 40s and 50s to buy the comic books, but yet you're saying we don't want you. And it was so weird to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think it's interesting how you're bringing up the point of like how Stan Lee, embody a little of Stan Lee. I mean, the guy believed in his product. He promoted his product. He created a world with other creators. And that's what he did, and they did, you're gonna have stories. People are gonna pull from the real world, but it was never really one-sided. It was kind of like a neutral, like, hey, don't be an a-hole,
Right, and that was the thing. So sometimes people, they do this sort of like straw man argument where they're like, there's always been politics in comics. And I'm like, but it wasn't mean-spirited. It wasn't saying if you disagree with me, you're a bad person. It presented you with issues that you could chew on after the fact. And maybe, they were informed by their political bent, but it wasn't a mean thing.
Right.
And Doug, and I know, and I've heard, I've heard about you. I've heard some things, and you and I chatted before we went on live and stuff. And you are considered an OG comic skater. Elaborate. I'd love for you to just kind of maybe educate on those times, and what comic skate meant to you, and why you have been with this movement.
Right. So in the early days when it first sort of formed, I was saying I transitioned from the blog to YouTube because I wanted to reach more people. With YouTube, you could just reach so many more people at once. And so it was basically myself. It was Richard C. Meyer of Jawbreakers, now God King. It was Captain Cummings, Captain Frugal, Englentine from I Love Comics. And in many ways, in my mind, it's always sort of been about a set of principles to sort of live by in terms of, all right, we want solid storytelling. We want solid art. We want to love the hero's journey, and we want to have reverence for that. And then we want to have a professionalism that you show towards the fans, even the ones that are salty with you, even the ones that tell you, drop F-bombs on you. It's not your job to get into a stupid tit-for-tat match with people that are upset with you. You need to always try and strive for that sort of ideal. And so it was these ideals, to me, Comicsgate was a network, an open network of individuals that came together around these sort of principles. And obviously people disagree with the tactics in terms of how to change the industry or whatever, but the principles themselves were the guiding force.
Now, so you're at the beginning of this forefront, this movement of kind of, to me it sounds like, hey, let's make comics fun again. Let's bring back that, why we love comics and all of that. Now, over time, things build up, things branch off. I mean, what's your view? And again, you don't have to say anything that, will hinder or anything. But I mean, what is your view on Comicsgate now? And we won't say names of any other groups or organizations that have formed, but what is your take on the movement now and some of these, I don't know, like off-rooted movements that consider themselves Comicsgate, if you know what I'm saying?
Right. So with me, whenever you're dealing with an open network, and that's how I always view it, of individuals, then there are going to be people that disagree with you on any number of issues. And some people are saltier than others. Some people are more rambunctious or whatever. But at the end of the day, to me, it always comes back to, okay, do they at least have some sort of fidelity to these guiding principles in terms of getting comics back to solid storytelling and solid art? And I don't have to be friends with everybody. I was saying on my own channel last night that it's almost like a body, and the body has different parts. So there's the kidneys, and there's the livers, and there's the eye. And I'll let people define what part of the Comicsgate body I am in terms of this particular movement. But I'm not going to, if my kidney was doing something, that I didn't like on one day, or was like aching me, or I don't know, I wouldn't want to rip out my kidney all of a sudden and throw it away. So I just, for the most part, I try and just hone in on doing the best that I can do, and I don't want to be like Mr. Busybody in other people's business. And to me, as long as you just kind of focus on those principles, it all works itself out in the end.
And how do you feel about I've seen a very strong camaraderie amongst creators within Comicsgate and stuff of that nature. How, for you in your comic career, how have you seen networking and things of that nature within this group? I mean, you've got professionals, you have aspiring. Well, I'm not even gonna say aspiring. A creator's a creator. It just depends on where are you at which point in time. So you do have your professionals that have hit the scene and have done some amazing things, and you've got guys that are trying to get off the ground. So how's it been seeing the growth and the network capability?
Yeah, that's something that's just totally, I mean, a couple years ago, it's just me even literally being on this channel talking to you right now. A couple, years ago, when people were saying, listen, there can be a parallel industry that can form, but people were saying, that's not possible. I was trying to tell people, there are literally thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands, of alienated readers out there. If they could just find a way to connect, they could just be like, okay, you don't like me, you don't want anything to do with my money, fine, we'll do our own thing. And so, to me, it just keeps growing and growing, and the snowball, there's always going to be critics, and they've said that Comicsgate or Team Comics has died about a dozen times now in the past year, but it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and more content keeps coming out. It's you can't stop it. The only thing that could stop it at this point is ourselves, if we do stupid stuff and fight with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, everyone's welcome, and we've extended that to everyone's welcome on this show. We don't care, you know what I mean, what anyone's thing, you know. So I just love that, like you said, like what'd you call him, the Todd Father, you know, that thing of everyone's included, everyone can, you know, can be you know, you can be a part of something, you can be a part of a movie, you can have your own, you know, personal persuasions about this or that. But how could you alienate people like you're saying, and you really struck a chord that, because we're seeing it now too, because we've learned a lot, right? Nile, in the past 3 months that we've been doing this, of a lot of fans, thousands of fans are feeling alienated by things that you went through with certain creators too. That they want to throw their political or whatever, you know, their political points in their books or whatever like that, and if you disagree, you're not just wrong, you're evil.
Right.
You know, that's scary. You know what I mean? And it's crazy.
And like I was saying, at this point in time in I've paid off all my student loans. So back in the day, I was putting in over $1,000 a month or whatever the heck it was in student loans. It's like, I'm not sending all that to Uncle Sam anymore, or the government or whatever, or the banks. I have this money. I like comic books. I would like to buy comic books. And so I'm looking for people that want to just like treat me like a normal human being. And it's like, okay, like I said, if you don't want my money, if you want to call me all sorts of mean, nasty names, then I will go to Billy Tucci. I will go to Richard C. Meyer or Ethan Van Sciver or whoever. You just keep going down the list of people, and until I find people that want to act like professionals.
And they just want to make good comics, and there's nothing. And what's wrong with that? It's crazy.
Yeah.
It really is.
And that's one thing, man. You know, me and Billy, just from chatting throughout the, you know, the months and years and just talking about stuff and what's going on. And, man, this crowdfunding stuff's real cool, huh? Yeah, you know, and doing things. And you get to see this whole other world. And, you know, what's really cool of knowing Mr. Tucci, I have to say, is, you know, speaking of, you know, Godfathers and stuff like that, I mean, he did this when the tools weren't as accessible as they are today. I mean, the you know, right on the ground, hitting the pavement. So it's really neat to have, you know, Billy's view on crowdfunding, this and that, and how this whole process of self-publishing has evolved into this whole other realm of capabilities that really can help anyone. Like, all the tools are literally there. It's actually really easy now to do it. And, you know, having, you know, guys like Billy, Ethan, some of these other guys out there helping to support it. I mean, you do get to see this more open community, you know. Creators can get advice. They can do things. I mean, I think now is just like a great time. I think this is really the golden age of crowdfunding and, you know, even just a new era of indie comics.
Yeah, and I got to say, I love the idea. That's why I got into it, because I couldn't believe all these self-publishers, and I was a fierce advocate that back in the day. That's how I became friends with Terry Moore and Robin Moore, Strangers in Paradise, and Jeff Smith and Brian Pulido and Jimmy Palmiotti and Joe Quesada when they were doing an event, and all these, you know, Stan Sakai, all these, you know, creators that were doing their own books, and it was at a wonderful time, and we had this little, you know, this little group, this little clique that we were all together, you know, doing this, and now, you know, and you know, you could, it's a lot of work, but it's so doable now for a lot of people, and that's why it's so encouraging to me to see someone like yourself, that here you are, you know, in your day job, you're writing, you're a writer, you know, every day for the news, for this, for that, for commentary, but then at night you put on your cape, you know what I mean? Unless, you know, and then you become a superhero, unless that's the real you, you know, like your day job, you know, is you know, your
mask.
Yeah, is your mask, and then at night is when you're you know, you're Doug,
right?
You know what I mean? You're DE, and I just love it, and I love, especially talking to someone like you who's really smart and articulate, because I got to tell you, I learned something every day from these, you know, from every show. And I think I might have done it, you know, for purely selfish reasons too, because I wanted to learn more and find, and I guess find that click again, you know what I mean? That camaraderie between other, you know, people that want to do their own thing. Because who the hell are you to tell me I can't do it, you know?
And the cool thing about it is, being on Twitter and all these social media sites, there are people who are like, oh, you're going through the Indiegogo thing for the first time. Are there any lessons that you could impart to me? And I was like, of course. Yeah. Shoot me an email, shoot me a DM on Twitter, whatever. I will help you out as much as possible, because in the past, it's like I said, there's these people that they think that because I disagree with them, I'm a bad person. They're going to make sure I never get my hands on Spider-Man or whatever. We will not let this guy get Spider-Man. So it's like, okay, well, I will create my own IP, and then I will pass on any knowledge I get to anybody else that wants to create their own IPs. You know, not just as a to spite you sort of thing, but on some level, I guess it is. It's just be like, oh, you think that you could stop the creative sort of process or this movement that's bubbling up? I will redouble my efforts every time you try and squash it. We're going to redouble our efforts.
There you go. And
man.
Is that you found there were people, looking for you, and it's a testament that you have, $20,000, that you've brought in, for a creator to raise that, even in the mainstream, that's a big book right there. Mm-hmm. That dollar for dollar, you're up there in the top, I don't know, maybe 50 books or something that come out every month. So you're taking it to the majors. And what's cool is that it's very personal, and I mean not in a negative way. Your work is very personal. It's personal to you, and then these fans out there see that, and the fans are reacting to it. And it's I don't know. I gotta tell you, I find it so inspiring, and well done, my friend. I'm just so good. I'm happy for you, and I hope you keep on doing it. And maybe we should, get into Soulfinder now.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get into this. So, hey guys, we're gonna get into Soulfinder Demons match, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna play the video for everyone.
My name is Doug Ernst, the writer of Soulfinder Demons Match, a story about a major order of exorcists, all combat veterans who take on levels of evil that most of the world cannot fathom. For many years, I've worked at a newspaper in Washington, D.C. Sometimes I'm blessed with interviewing guys like Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs fame, or actor Gary Sinise. But my true love has always been the craft of storytelling. I've assembled a team of top-notch talent to include artist Timothy Lim and colorist Brett R. Smith to tell the tale of Father Patrick Redder, Father Reginald Crane, and Officer Gregory Chua as they investigate a series of mysterious deaths in Steepleton, Maryland. Soulfinder Demons Match, with covers by the legendary Dave Dorman, is the book for you if you love the classic hero's journey, tales of good versus evil, and content that explores meaningful subject matter in a way that respects readers and does not insult their intelligence. Likewise, our project weaves mystery, horror, action, and drama into a 56-page, self-contained, character-driven tale that aims to give readers the kind of high-quality content that was once expected from the industry leaders on a weekly basis. Our team is also including 8 pages of bonus material to make sure Soulfinder Demons Match is worth your hard-earned cash. Thank you for your time as you consider backing independent creators on Indiegogo. Please don't hesitate to email questions to Douglas Ernst at douglasernstblog.com.
I mean, Doug, the artwork, everything's just gorgeous in this book. I mean, what inspired this? How did Soulfinder Demons Match come to be?
So everything always kind of almost goes back to the blog. I've said before, like, this particular project is almost a culmination of a decade of my pent-up frustration with the comic book industry. And I wanted to send a message like, this is the type of book that I want. And then the campaign that I'm running with my artist Timothy Lim and Brett R. Smith is our colorist. Dave Dorman did 2 covers for us. Matt Weldon did additional art. But I wanted to run the campaign in a way where I practiced what I preached. And so on every level across the board, vertically, horizontally, however you want to cut it, I wanted to show the creators that I've been upset with that this is the standard that I expect from you guys. I don't know if they would listen to me, but I wanted at least customers to see that there was another way.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
So
and
what?
It is.
I'm sorry, Billy.
No, and it is hardcore. Can you tell us a little bit about the story?
Sure. So the story itself is about combat veterans who essentially became exorcists. They got out of the military and they went into the priesthood, and there's a major order of exorcists called Soulfinders, and they take on levels of evil that most of the world they cannot fathom, they cannot understand, and you basically need a skill set that only those who have been on the battlefield have. And that's explained at some point later on in the story. There's a spiritual realm that has to deal with these matches that when they're struck, they essentially take you to a different realm where you deal with demons and all sorts of stuff. One in particular called Blackfire. We usually use his Greek name, but so these very, very powerful demons, and having been on the battlefield, that allows you to basically understand how to deal with them.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I wanted as well with this story, so people are like, well, did you just gravitate towards priests initially? And I was like, well, I got sick of the deconstruction of the heroes in Marvel and DC. They just kept deconstructing and deconstructing, and there was a moral relativism. You didn't know who was bad, who was good. The anti-heroes, they were actually like not even, it was like basically you couldn't tell the difference between who was the villains anymore. And I was like, I want good versus evil. One way to get that was to have demons from hell. So there's no mistaking that they are evil. And then I actually wanted to have men who were flawed men. They have their own sort of baggage, and they have their own trials and tribulations in their life, but their moral compass was functioning, and it was pointed towards magnetic north, and they knew how to get to where they needed to go. I didn't want any sort of moral confusion, and I just wanted to give people heroes that they could look up to, people that they have all sorts of pain and struggling and suffering in their life, but there's actually virtue to be found in dealing with that suffering with grace and dignity.
Wow.
Nice.
That's
And so
deep.
yeah, it is. It is.
That's deep.
So Patrick, Father Patrick Redder, right? Is it Redder or Reader?
Father Patrick Redder. Patrick stands for noble. It translates, and Redder translates into savior, so noble savior. Although it worked out that way. My brother was the one who came up with Redder, and his name is Patrick, and so it just worked out perfectly. So that was me, like, sort of like honoring my brother, but also it just worked out where it was noble savior.
Very good. Now, that he's a demonologist. Now, are you a novice demonologist yourself? Did you learn, like, how do you learn? I mean, there's so much to go through from the Bible or from old, scribes and books and things like that. Yeah, where did you? Here we
He's
go.
gonna pull out the books.
That actually gets into the Comicsgate thing as well. So one of the things that irritated me about a lot of the modern writers anyway, is they don't seem to do any research into issues that demand you do at least a cursory bit of research into the subject matter. So if your character is a CEO of a major corporation and you don't know Business 101, that's a problem to me. And it was just really ticking me off over the course of many years that they were not doing any research whatsoever. And so I did a lot of research into exorcists, demons. So I could speak quite at length about that sort of stuff. But the one thing that I will note is that I did not want to be preachy in this book. So the characters are exorcists, but I'm not trying to say, if you don't believe what I believe, you're a bad person. I don't do that. But I think I know what I'm talking about in terms of demons.
But
Makes
more
sense.
important, do you believe in demons?
Oh, well done.
Well, I'm a practicing Catholic, so I definitely believe in the existence of heaven and hell. So definitely.
You're a fellow fish eater like us.
Exactly.
Right? And now, where are you from originally?
I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, the northwest suburbs. I went to called Elgin High School, and there was a comic shop called Moondogs in Schaumburg, Illinois that I used to go to, and right across the street was a recruiting station. And I've said this before, it's really cheesy, But literally, like, the last thing that I was doing before I walked into the recruiter's office was I was looking at Captain America comic books, and it was like, am I going to do this? Am I really going to do this? Yeah, I'm going to do it. And then I was off to basic training a couple weeks later.
What year did you go in?
1997.
Oh, okay. 97. Oh, boy. Wow. So you're part of me. You're the old woodland camo BDUs and shining your boots generation.
Yes, very much so.
I think you might be the last of that generation.
Yeah, I mean, I love those old BDUs. They got really ugly really fast in the 2000s. I was not a fan of those at all.
Yeah, they look like pajamas. They end up.
Yep.
And even ours. Remember, like ours, if it faded, how cool it looked. It showed that it weren't some young boot. You know what I mean? You always like the faded equipment and everything like that. So now, okay, so sorry,
it's fine.
I love talking about this stuff. So Doug, how did you get Dave Dorman and Timothy Lim on board?
That goes back to the networking and Comicsgate and doing my YouTube videos. So I met Tim through my YouTube videos, and I don't know exactly how it happened, but I know he was going on a number of different channels, and somewhere along the line, I think he's Catholic as well. So he found out that I was Catholic, and we just started chatting, not even about comic books, just about faith issues and spirituality. And so we had that in common, and then our politics are basically the same as well. And so we just sort of hit it off, and we started talking on the phone. At some point in time, he was asking me about story ideas, and I was explaining what would eventually become Soulfinder. And he was like, well, when I was a kid, I had a similar idea because they had a G.I. Joe contest where you come up with your own G.I. Joe. And I wanted to have a chaplain, basically, that would take on Cobra's black magic sort of guys or something along those lines. And so I was like, whoa, that kind of sounds like we probably should work together and tease this out a little bit. And he was on board with that. And so I was like, no, I'm really serious here. I'm not joking around. He's like, no, I know you're a serious guy. So I was like, if you leave your schedule open for next year, I will get you a script by this time. And he's like, cool. So I wrote the script, and it was done around last October. And then he was in Orlando, Florida with his longtime collaborator, Mark Pellegrini. They were at Disney World. So I used that as an excuse to do like a business personal sort of trip. And I flew down, got them the script. I got two other guys, Professor Geek and Mike McNulty. They're good guys that do comic stuff as well. They read the script. They liked it. And then along the lines, that's how I also met Brett R. Smith, our colorist. Tim introduced us. We hit it off in terms of definitely with like politics. And Tim has worked with Dave Dorman on multiple projects. I think he was eating dinner with Dave at some point in time after one of the projects, and he was explaining Soulfinder, and Dave was like, I'm game. That sounds pretty cool. And so we got him far enough in advance. Like that was even, I don't know, probably like 7 months in advance to do 2 covers for us.
Nice. Well, Jack, they're gorgeous. Jackpot.
Yeah, Dave's a talented guy. He's a nice guy, too. I've talked to him a couple times.
Yeah, we basically kind of gave him the general idea of what we were looking for, and Tim's like, don't worry, you'll like what he does. You don't need to give him very much instruction at all. So it was minimal instruction, and then he just like, boom, just the covers that we have out there now, that's what he came up with. So
very cool. Now, as far as crowdfunding goes, is Soulfinder your first Indiegogo?
Correct. This is my first Indiegogo. So I leaned on Tim and Brett a lot because they're more experienced. So when it comes to like all the logistics, I was like, I need help. I don't want to fall on my face here, and I don't want to embarrass you guys.
Yeah. And and you've never done a crowdfunding project prior?
I have not, no.
Oh,
and
wow.
you're already at $20,000?
That's crazy.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, my plan initially, so a lot of it really just has to, it's weird. It goes back to those principles where it was like I started with the blog and then YouTube, and I was like, if you could just generate a bond of trust with your audience, and if they can see that you believe in a project, they could see you're serious. ultimately, like who knows how they'll react to the story, but they could see that I'm passionate about it, and they could see that I actually care about them as human beings. Like they're not just random robots or cyborgs or whatever, like pixels on the other end of a screen to me. They're real people on the other end of that screen, and I want to tell a story that is worth their time, and maybe that they could find some sort of value in 5 years, 10 years from now, they could pull it off the shelf and say, wow, this still holds up. And I can't thank my subscribers for, they're along for the ride, and they're in my corner, and they're the ones that are making this all possible.
Yeah. So what do you think of the crowdfunding process so far, now that you're actually in the meat of it?
You definitely need to be committed. You can't sort of go halfway. So like I said, I have my full-time job, but after work, you have to make sure that you are constantly answering those emails, getting back to people, getting back to international customers that are emailing you, doing all the Twitter stuff, coming up with little videos, doing the YouTube videos, doing live streams, everything. And you just have to basically be hitting the pavement every single day to make sure that your name is out there and that you're rising above all the other noise that's competing against your project.
Yeah. Yeah, it's work because you're on, right, for a month now. How do you swing, doing that? How do you swing the promotional aspects of it to your everyday life? To to your job? How much time do you set aside? A certain amount of time per day? It's like, okay, I got to work on Soulfinder, on the promotion, because you're in the promotion mode now, right? I mean, that's you're in selling mode. You're in the sales department mode. How do you find time to do that, like in your videos and all that, working that, between everyday life?
The good thing about my job is that I'm on social media so much anyway that I could respond to stuff. And as long as I do my normal work at the newspaper, they're not going to bug me. So it's like if I have to take an hour and a half off, but at the end of the day, I still do the same amount of work that I normally do or more, hopefully, they're going to be like, okay, just let him do his Twitter thing with his Soulfinder, whatever. So that I have a little bit of wiggle room that other people might not have. So that's good. But then the other thing is I was like, okay, well, for the course of the campaign, I'm just going to have to burn the candle at both ends. And then when it's over, I'll sleep when it's over, basically.
Yeah. And then you got to ship it. And then you won't sleep again.
What was that thing called? Sleep? What is that?
Sleep is for the weak.
Yeah, you don't need
sleep.
Sleep
Is a crutch.
There's plenty of time to sleep when you're dead. Keep creating. Never stop.
Never stop.
So for someone out there, you're doing your first Kickstarter and you're in Indiegogo, and you're in the thick of it right now. Yeah, I mean, you are now pushing that last little bit. What is the best advice right now, just from what you know? Because you still have the fulfillment processes and stuff like that to go through still. But just getting things going, getting off the ground. What's the best advice you could give someone out there who's looking to do this as well?
Yeah, there's a couple things. If you haven't built up a base audience first, if you're just a total you're unknown quantity, and you're especially if you don't have a bigger name, like a Dave Dorman attached to your cover or something like that, you're going to have to need that base audience. I don't know what that number is. You would have to run the numbers in terms of what you need to define success. What is it? Is it, and then do the math to figure out where you have to reach. But so having that base audience is very important, especially if you don't have connections that will push it for you. Some people, they look to the pros as like their magic bullet or something along those lines. Like if I could only get on this station or this channel, then all my dreams will be fulfilled or whatever. And it's like, I think that's bad. You don't want to go that route. You want to plan everything where if people help you, that's nice, but your strategy and everything needs to be around like having that sort of base of support. But if you can get a Dave Dorman attached or an established artist that will help give you some credibility, that will also help as well.
That's good advice.
And that's where networking comes in.
That's excellent advice. That is excellent advice. So Yeah, because you do see the people, and there was some controversy about some people were wondering why more established pros weren't either having them on their shows or helping promote their stuff and all, and they're saying, well, hey, if I do this out of because I want to, don't shame someone into doing it, because that's not going to be a recipe for success anyway, to depend on somebody else,
Right. You basically have to go into it with the mentality that the world doesn't owe me a thing. Nobody owes me a thing. So if you receive something, then you will be grateful for that thing. And I know that's difficult at times, but you're setting yourself up for failure if you are expecting people to just see your project and say like, oh, okay, I'm going to spend an hour and a half out of my day helping this guy out, because it's just, you're going to set yourself up for anger and resentment and jealousy and all sorts of bad stuff. Mm-hmm. So the more you could just feel as though nobody owes you anything, and you got a plan expecting that it's going to be just you and your little band of brothers or whatever, your subscriber base, that's probably the best way to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Now getting back to Demon's Match, the Soulfinders, they are a high order of exorcists. Have you ever seen an exorcism? Have you ever, how did you, tell me about, okay, this is really cool, exorcism, or is there anything that, because I'm fascinated by all this stuff. I really am. It's terrifying, but I love this stuff. When you're searching through YouTube and all, what exactly is an exorcist? Is it, what is it? The word of Christ compels you, the power of Christ compels you from the Omen film or from the Exorcist film? What is an exorcism like in your books? What are they? What do they do?
So, wow, that I'll have to try and distill a lot of it. So the first part of your question, what sort of inspired this, is, to me, I think, like you said, everybody is sort of fascinated by the supernatural.
Yeah.
And part of the reason for that is if you've been living for, we'll just say, any number of years, 30 years, 40 years, you've probably met somebody that has had a supernatural experience, and somebody that you believe would not lie to you, that has no reason to lie to you, that doesn't have a mental illness, that isn't on drugs, that isn't trying to trick you. They had some sort of supernatural experience. So that continuously draws people into that to begin with. And then in terms of what exactly is an exorcism, so how do I say this? There is possession, but the vast majority of people are never possessed. And it's a very, very, very small percentage of people that actually reach that bar where they have to have an exorcism like you would see in The Exorcist or whatever performed on them. But there are other ways that demonic elements, again, I'm putting it on my Catholic hat here, act upon a person. So whether it's infestation, oppression, obsession, vexation, all these sorts of different ways that demonic elements can try and influence you, essentially whisper in your ear. And so that has always sort of fascinated me in terms of like that sort of, where does free will, you have free will, and so how much of it is me just wanting to give in to, I don't know, the flesh, we'll say, or the world, and what the world wants of me and the flesh wants of me, and then how much of it is the devil on your shoulder whispering in your ear, and sort of exploring those sorts of ideas.
Have you had a supernatural experience? Have you had any sort of a night terror, one of them things, or something like that, like a being coming after you, being targeted, being
head spinning and vomiting everywhere.
Oh no,
crab walking up on your ceiling.
Well, not as in that sense, but actually, when I was a very little boy, I was telling somebody this the other day. I was basically in a snowball fight, and there were kids on both sides of the road, and we were throwing snowballs at each other, and I was running towards a kid, and I was going to throw a snowball at him, and I felt something basically just like grab me and like hold me in place, and a car basically slammed on its brakes and then like just missed where I would have been. And even as a little kid, I felt like I didn't do that. Like something that in my mind, that's when I started to like think like, oh, guardian angels are real, that sort of thing. So again, it's my Catholic. If people don't agree with that, that's fine. But my experience as a kid was that I should be dead right now. Those sorts of things. Or if you've ever, like, there was another time where I was at a stoplight and it turned green and I was going to go, but then like I heard this little voice that's like, don't go. And then I didn't go, and then a car goes through the red light or whatever. And these are things that I can never prove to anybody. There's no quantitative. A scientist will never be able to prove exactly what happened. But like in my heart, I'm just like, I know that something beyond my understanding took place there. I don't know what it is, but I believe something happened.
Absolutely. Wow.
So do you believe in ghosts?
Yes and no. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I would say yes. Yes.
Aliens.
It depends on, I guess, how you would define. I think that there are things that happen with spirits that, again, are actually beyond our understanding, and it's one of those things where I don't delve too much into it, but I believe that there are souls that after they've passed on, something is going on where they are stuck basically in a purgatory sort of state, or they're an in-between-ish realm. But it's something that's beyond my comprehension.
Now, what about aliens?
That's something where the universe is so large and there's so many stars, and like literally like trillions and trillions and trillions of stars and planets, that to me, just from the sheer probability, you would think that somewhere out there that there would be the conditions for life. But that's another one of those things where I don't dwell on it. But I would think statistically somewhere out there that there could be other organisms that are alive.
And did you like the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
Oh, why would you ask that
Which
question?
one?
Because it's an important question.
All
the
right.
original one.
It freaked me out as a kid.
Dude, it freaked me out
too.
too. Oh my God, it freaked me
Me
out.
too.
So much. I hate that freaking movie.
Right.
You hate it. Why, Nile, did you bring this up?
Because I too have little voices in my head.
Oh,
And it
boy.
said, bring up Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That movie, I love that movie, but it creeped me out as a kid.
Yeah.
I couldn't eat chocolate in the dark. I couldn't do it.
Wow, the Oompa Loompas really scared the shit out of me.
Right?
They scared the
Freaky.
hell out of me, and I thought it was just, what is going on? Remember when they're up in the thing and he starts, and it's spinning round and round and getting scared?
And
Remember, like,
spinning and spinning and round, and the lights are going. You know what freaked me out, though? When the Oompa Loompas like dancing, right? And then the other ones do like a handstand, and then they're almost like moving legs and stuff. It was like, what the heck are they doing?
Yeah, anything that reminds me of sort of acid trippy sort of,
Yeah.
I don't even know, but that era of movies, every once in a while there were just movies that just gave me the creeps. And I'm not saying they were bad movies, but they were just a little too weird for my taste.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a great film.
Oh, God. All right, so now getting back to the aliens, being Catholic, you would believe that God made man in his own image, correct?
Correct.
So, you know, and there's only one God. So these aliens, wouldn't they look just like us? Because, I mean, how many images does he have?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, if God wanted to on some sort of planet, like put dogs or something like that, like
Dog
I
Planet.
guess that would be an alien, or as far as we're concerned. But it was just like something else out there that God created that I don't know about. But he certainly has, God the Father certainly has the power to do whatever the heck he wants to do. But at the same time, like I said, I don't spend too much of my days like wondering about aliens, looking for aliens, wondering if people have been abducted or not. It's just one of those things where it's like, well, does God have the ability to create new life elsewhere? Yeah. Did he? I don't know, but it seems like statistically probable that the conditions exist out there in the universe.
Yeah, sure. That question I said how many images he had was in a James Spader made-for-TV movie one night where he fell in love with an alien woman, and she looked like us. And his friend said, "Well, why doesn't she have antennas?" And he said, "Well, you're Catholic, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, you believe that God made man in his own image, right?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, how many images do you think he has?" And that was it. And that's always stuck. So that's basically it. Hey, buddy.
Do you have any alcohol?
Check right down. See right down there by
Oh, I see
the.
it. Never mind.
Sorry. Oh, I got some alcohol, buddy. Let me tell you.
I have some?
No.
Damn it.
Anyway, I'm sorry. But I digress. I apologize. So that's it. Okay. So, if I may, Doug, what is the scariest thing to ever happen to you?
Ooh, the scariest thing that ever happened to me. Well, I would say, I don't know how do I say this? It starts to get personal. I don't know if people are going to think it's weird.
Need something kind of funny, not something terrifying and heartbreaking. I'm sorry, like you saw a dog get hit by a car or something. Like, did you ever oh my God, like Doug what was it? Doug Braithwaite he was driving home one day in the wilds of West Virginia, and he saw a Bigfoot run across the street.
Oh, Mitch Breitweiser?
Mitch did, yeah.
I was so, oh my God, he just called me up. He's like, "Oh, I saw Bigfoot." I'm like, "Ha ha ha." He's like, "No, really, I saw Bigfoot." I'm like, "What?"
I will tell you something that scared the heck out of me recently that actually ties in with Soulfinder. I'm actually pretty good at lucid dreaming, where you know that you're dreaming and you're conscious and you could think about stuff and ask questions. And about a week ago, I woke up in the middle of the night, but I woke up in my dream, so I was still dreaming. And there was this creepy little baby thing on my bed, and it got up, but then its face was uber pale, and it turned into this almost angry clown face. What? And it was clearly demonic. But I was conscious, and it just said, "Douglas Ernst," and it was just pacing back and forth on my bed over me, and I was so terrified. I was thinking there's nothing I could do. This is a demonic element, and it's going to have its way with me. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And I was just so terrified, and I was shaking or whatever. And then my wife woke me up, and then I actually woke up. But I was that was more real than real. I don't think that was a dream. There was a part of me that was I wonder if demons are upset that I'm actually putting out this book into the world, which actually has messages that are wholesome, where the characters have functioning moral compasses, and they actually combat demons or something along those lines. But it was absolutely terrifying. And like I said, I was lucid in this particular moment, and it was quite terrifying. So that's a recent thing that was quite scary.
I had one of those type things, but mine was more UFO. It was weird. It was kind of like what your experience said. Mine was more alien related. And I swear, something had made me come outside, and I felt the air. I could smell the atmosphere. I was walking outside, and this droid thing was just kind of hovering, and everything just seemed so real. That. I guess that's that lucid dream, whatever you were calling it. But those are worse. More worse than just your traditional dream. I mean, because they just feel too real.
Yeah, no, those, especially if you're kind of thinking and you're conscious in your dream, and you're thinking I am scared right now. This is terrifying. That gets pretty scary.
So when you're actually saying to yourself, "Am I dreaming or am I awake?" Because everything felt real, temperatures and wind and stuff. It just weird.
Yeah, that is terrifying, because I'm not into that stuff. You're working on it, Doug. So maybe that's in your mind or something like that. That's on your brain working, with Soulfinder. But I had a night terror one time where I woke up and there was this shape. It was like a demon thing with pinning my arms back, and it was almost like chewing on my heart. this big black, and I was frozen. I remember there, and I must have been screaming, and I said, "Oh my God, I got to say the Lord's Prayer," but it started off as a Pledge of Allegiance. You know what I mean? I started with a Pledge of Allegiance, and then I switched to the Lord's Prayer, and then it kind of went away or whatever. But I remember fighting it, this thing, and I woke up, and my dog at the time was just sitting there in the corner of the room. Either she would sleep on the bed with me, or she had her bed, and she's in the farthest corner of the room just staring at me, and her eyes are like this big. Like, what the hell just happened?
That's crazy.
That's scary. That's crazy stuff. So that's
awesome.
that. So do we have any questions for Doug?
You know, to be honest, the chat's mainly been just, no straight questions. If anyone's had any questions for Doug, now's the time. We got a lot of guys talking about their service experience. There are a lot of servicemen out there. Let's see. Merwin's got something coming your way, Billy.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you, Seymour. That's nice. Appreciate that. Douglas, what's next for Soulfinder? We get this, you're going to get funded. You're going to make a lot more in the next 3 days. You're going to hit a home run with it. What's next? What's the next graphic novel? What's the next step? Where do we go from here?
So one thing, definitely, just to be open with everybody, we will be extending the campaign because Brett R. Smith is still working. So we are on track to ship on time or early. So because everything's still tracking, it's on time, but he's still working. We're like, we might as well just extend it for a little bit. So we will actually extend it for a few weeks. So there's that. But then in terms of future stories, once those get out, I was talking with Brett. There's a character, his name is Father Reginald Train in here. He's like the mentor. He's a Vietnam veteran. And Brett was saying, like, dude, I would really like to do a prequel with you that takes place during Vietnam. And it will be like the old 80s comics, the Nam. And I was like, yeah, my brother used to have those. I used to read those when I was a kid as well. So I would like to do a prequel at some point in time that takes place during Vietnam. That's high on my list. And then obviously I would like to continue Father Redder's tales as well. So there's a Indiana Jones-ish tale that I would like to go in that direction. But the thing with these characters is because they're combat veterans and because they're priests, they could literally go anywhere in the world. They have skill sets that allow them to take on physical threats in addition to supernatural threats. And so I could go into the action genre. I could stay with mystery. I could go into the horror realm and do that. So there's all these different adventure ways that you could go with this sort of by combining these two sort of specialties together into one. You could do pretty much whatever the heck you want.
Oh, awesome. So we do have some questions coming in. Let's see. Antone Dennison asked, what is your shipping looking like on Soulfinder?
Sure. So we put November was our estimated shipping date, and we are still, again, scheduled to meet or exceed that. So I would actually like to be a month early if possible, maybe even a little bit more. But it all really depends on Brett. So Brett has multiple. He just finished up with a werewolf western type thing called Blood, and now he's working on Soulfinder. But I know that he's doing like multiple projects. So I gave him wiggle room to do what he needed to do, but I didn't want him to rush it. So it will, at the latest, it will be shipped in November. But if I had my way, you will receive it in late September or October, if possible.
Okay.
But Tim is completely done with the art. Obviously, the covers are in, and the script was done long ago, and so now it's just being colored. Brett's the last piece in the puzzle.
All right, and then Alpha Proto and Jay Conant, they kind of already asked like if this is going to be a standalone book, will it be a series? But you kind of already answered that. With where everything's kind of headed. So Spirits Car asked Doug, do any saints play a role in Soulfinder?
Oh.
So on the Dave Dorman card that we have, there is the St. Michael prayer on the back. And so anybody who's in law enforcement, if they're in the military, they know about praying to St. Michael, particularly if you're Catholic. So I thought that was actually a good fit to have that imagery on there. But in terms of actual saints showing up in the book, that does not happen. There are prayers, and there's a little bit of Latin in there so if anyone speaks Latin, you'll get some of that. But it doesn't get into the specific saints.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Saint Michael behind you, isn't he on the shelf right there?
Yeah, there's Gabriel, Michael, and then Raphael in the back.
Nice. I would put Michael in your bedroom with those guys going. Yeah. So,
Yeah, well, when I was in the service, my mom, before I left, she had a Saint Michael pendant, and she gave it to me, and I always took that everywhere I went for the duration of my time in the military. So I always had that, and Saint Michael's just always played a big role in my life for whatever reason. Since I was little, my mom spoke of Saint Michael, and I don't know, it shaped my worldview, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And then some guy named Peter Samedi wants to know, hey all, hope everyone's having a good night. Question for Doug. Will you personally be packing, fulfilling, and shipping, etc., etc.?
So I will actually be personally fulfilling the international orders. So if anybody is international, in the frequently asked questions, it says email douglasernst@douglasernst.blog. So all of the international I will be taking care of, and the rest will be. I don't want to talk about who will be fulfilling our orders, but just know that Tim and Brett have plenty of contacts, and if you recently received My Hero Macadamia, if you got Trump Space Force, and all Black Ops and Tim's, all of his books on time. Basically, we're going to duplicate that, and we're going through many of the same channels. We'll just put it that way. But okay. I want to keep that a little close to the vest for reasons I could talk about off air.
Perfect. Awesome. So, if you don't mind, Doug, every episode we do a crowdfunding call out. And tonight's crowdfunding call is going to be for a book called Stoker and Wells. And I'm actually going to turn this over to Billy, because a good friend of Billy, this is his project. Isn't that correct, Billy?
Yes, it is. It's actually my friend. Two of my friends I met the first day of school of junior high. Stephen Peros and Barry Orkin. They had this amazing book called Stoker and Wells, Order of the Golden Dawn. And I think it was originally a 48-pager. But as things go, the more you get into the book, the more you start working on it, you're like, this has to be a lot bigger. So I think it's 90-some-odd pages or something like that. So they just did a new campaign. They just launched it just now, a little while ago. So, and he's only asking for 90. I don't know. He's less than $10,000. It's the story of Bram Stoker and Orson Welles, and all of their stories have come from somewhere, and all of their stories are based in truths. So it's really cool. So they bring all these characters in from all their great novels and all, and it's a real rollicking, spiritual. I'm not spiritual, but dealing with the occult. Very Indiana Jones-esque as well. High adventure, a lot of fun, a lot of thought-provoking. And if you're a fan of great fiction, you'll get a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of the nuances. And he actually explains a lot of where these ideas had come from. And it's a great adventure. And if you guys wouldn't mind, Stephen will be a guest on our show in a few weeks. Mm-hmm. And if you guys wouldn't mind, there's a variant cover by myself in there. And if you guys wouldn't mind contributing to it, and I get it, I know how it is. If you can't afford it, at least share it. The same thing with Doug's. If you guys can't support Soulfinder, please share it. And it's just a project I'm really proud to be a part of. Is Stoker Wells.
Yeah, and I've actually been following this for quite some time. I did, just kind of following the development, and a good friend of mine now that I met through Billy, our friend JCV. I mean, he's the editor on this as well.
Yep, and he's the editor, and Jeff is a creator in his own right. Mm-hmm. Jeff is also the vice president of Gemstone Publishing, that puts out the comic book price guide.
Yeah, the Overstreet comic book price guide and the other guides they put out. They actually put out many different guides. And
it's so cool that we get to meet. I mean, right now that we get to meet just from comics. And that's why I love Doug's. Like, Doug's got this no bullshit. Forgive me, Doug, for cussing in front of you. But you got this no BS meter, this type of thing about you, that you just want, you have a very positive vibe about you. You just want to tell good comics,
Mhm.
And I can see that, how it bothers you that people attack you if you disagree with them, in review, as when you're a reviewer of a book, even.
Yeah.
People have thick skins. Not everyone's going to like your books.
Yeah.
And I like, and it's a real pleasure to have you on, Doug. It really is.
I'm just gonna, before we go back to wrapping things up with Doug, I just want to play the video real quick for Stoker and Wells.
Sorry, yeah, sorry.
No problem. Apology accepted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephen Peros, writer and creator of Stoker and Wells, Order of the Golden Dawn, the very first book in the Stoker and Wells graphic novel series, which imagines a 20-something H.G. Wells and a 40-something Bram Stoker going on an adventure that inspired both man's first great work, The Time Machine for H.G. Wells and Dracula for Bram Stoker. Back in fall 2017, my partners and I launched a Kickstarter campaign, and thanks to our 274 extraordinary backers, we raised $20,825 to turn my feature-length screenplay of the same name into a graphic novel. We thought it would make an excellent 56-page book and felt that we could deliver it by summer 2018, barring anything unforeseen. Well, exciting and unforeseen things have happened. Namely, that we have expanded the book to 94 pages in order to do justice to both the story and the extraordinary art. So that means that if you contributed to our first Kickstarter campaign, you'll now be getting a book that is 68% longer than you were expecting, but it will be worth it. Now, to be clear, we can still deliver the 94-page book for the funds that we have already raised. It will mean, however, pulling funds from some vital areas, such as marketing and promotion, in order to pay for higher printing costs and pay additional salary to those who are working for us at a graciously low per-page rate. So I'm here now to raise a second round of funds. The proceeds from this campaign are entirely to pay our coloring, lettering, and production team additional printing costs, while not pulling funds from our marketing and promotions budget. I hope you will explore our page and choose to contribute for one of the exciting reward levels on the right side of the page. Thank you so much for your support of Stoker and Wells, Order of the Golden Dawn.
All right, Stoker and Wells, check it out.
Just launched, so
Very cool.
well, thank
Cool
you for
concept.
that. Great project.
Yes.
A great project. So, you wanted to? Are you going live YouTube tonight, Doug, or are you done?
No, I was up late last night doing a live stream, and then I had to be up at 4:30 in the morning to take my wife to the airport, so I'm pretty pooped today. So I think tonight I won't be doing my own live stream, but I'll probably do something tomorrow since she's out of town.
Well, I'm going to subscribe to your YouTube channel. Can you let everyone else know, those of you that may not have subscribed to it, about your YouTube channel, your Twitter handle, your Instagram, all that jazz?
Sure, thank you. I appreciate it. It's so I made it pretty easy for everybody on whether it's Instagram, it's Douglas Ernst, Twitter, Douglas Ernst, YouTube, Douglas Ernst, and my blog, same thing. Across the board, it's the same. Just Google, you will definitely find it. And I'm always talking about comics. I'm talking about culture, anything in the industry, that sort of stuff related to Comicsgate. These days, obviously, Soulfinder. But I would be remiss if I did not say one more time that I'm very grateful that you took time out of your busy schedule to speak with me tonight. And it's really cool having somebody that I admired within the comic book industry years ago to actually be able to interact in 2019 with someone like yourself. So again, thank you for having me.
Oh, you are too kind, friend. I look forward to breaking bread with you and hanging out. Right? I mean, Nile, we have a lot of fun with Mr. Ernst here.
Oh, I know. I'm in awe of what he said about me. I mean, jeez. I'm like, wow, man. Like, wow, that's crazy.
Doug, if you can, please try. Now, everyone, again, this is the Doug Show, so let's go. We'll talk about you. But please, if you can, make your way to the left coast. No, we're the left. They're the left coast, right? To the East Coast. During the Baltimore Comic-Con, that third week in October. Come visit the Washington Post Times guys. Go do your thing and come to ScotchCon, please, because you would be a valuable asset to it, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, admission's only $125, so it's going to be great. Paid to me.
Now, do you drink? Do you drink or do you smoke a pipe or a cigar or anything like that, or are you adverse to that?
I've never been a smoker at all. Even when I was in the military, people tried to get me to do dip and smoke, and I never did that. I will have a drink on occasion. I'm not opposed to that. But these days, especially as I've gotten older, I don't know. I usually don't drink as much as I used to. So, but if it's with guys that I trust, then I'm not opposed to having a few drinks at all. So, and you guys seem like pretty cool dudes, so I wouldn't be opposed to that at all.
It's a lot of fun. We end up singing songs, and we got old Cap kind of runs the whole thing. He's a retired Army captain. He was a JAG officer, and he's one of the greats. So we'll have a lot of fun. So
It'll be a good time, man. It's a good time.
So hopefully you could make it. If not, we will see each other somewhere for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
And,
all right.
And anytime you want to come on our show, sir, please. You have an open forum. If you want to go when you're coming to near the end of when you do expand it and you want to come back on, please. Even if it's 10 minutes or so, we'd love to have you on. And the same thing when you come time you start fulfilling it, and especially your overseas orders, all that stuff. Anytime, I'm just saying that the invitation is always there for you, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Yeah, just shoot an email.
The feeling is mutual, and it's a reciprocal relationship. I know you got your own channel going, but if you ever, for whatever reason, wanted to come on my channel, you guys are definitely welcome. So it's cool to get, you never know how people are gonna vibe when you first kind of come on. But like I said, you guys are very, very cool, and I would be happy to have you on my channel anytime as well.
Tomorrow. Can we come up tomorrow?
Definitely. Whenever. You guys have an open invitation as well.
Well, we'd love to come on. We'd have a lot of fun, wouldn't we, Nile?
Oh, of course.
We should start going on other shows together, though, too. I think that could be a lot of fun.
We should. Matching outfits, too.
No.
Why not?
All right, sure, why not? Like a black t-shirt, we got to buy something special.
Yeah.
We'll see what's on sale at Old Navy that day, and we'll go and we'll take pictures and buy the same thing. And we'll look like twins. You'll be Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'll be Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
You're so big, and I'm so short, so.
Yeah, I'm pretty fat, thanks. No, joke.
Oh.
All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning in. Doug, thank you so much for being on the show. As always, you are now part of the Crowdfunding Comics family, so whenever you want to come on, hang out, just give a holler. Hit us up on Twitter or in the email, whichever you like. Again, Billy, great show. Awesome time. Big week next week for you, my friend. San Diego Comic-Con, 25 years of She.
Yeah, crazy.
I do want to ask you, though, that cover, the She Lady Death cover, is getting a lot of eyes on it. Hearts are pounding. Souls are screaming. People want those covers.
Yes.
How can they get these covers? How can they get these books?
All right. Well, the Lady Death She, we are doing a special. If I may, Doug, do you mind just give me a second just to pitch my own little thing here? We have the She Lady Death. We're doing a San Diego Comic-Con. It's called Independence. It's our 25th anniversary San Diego Comic-Con special editions of She, the Way of the Warrior #1 and Lady Death #1, The Reckoning, but it's an interconnected cover. So they're actually facing off with each other. It fits perfectly. We're going to be doing prints. We'll have a trading card. There's metal editions, and you can only get it at the San Diego Comic-Con, but that's not true. Brian will be going live at Chaos. I know. Brian will be going live at Brian and I will go live via I believe it's through Facebook Live on next Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, and Brian's store will go live with the books for those of you who cannot make it to the San Diego Comic-Con to get those books. So the regular editions are $20 each. There's only 150 of them made, and then he's got a metal edition, which is they're $100, and there's only 35 of those made. And if I may, tomorrow I'm going to go live with our little book. I have it all set up here if you guys can see it. I don't know if you can you see it, Nile, at all?
Can I see it?
A little bit. Well, here I'm going to go live tomorrow with our She San Diego Comic Con exclusive boudoir edition.
Ooh.
So it's my very first ever. I don't know how we would call it, artsy edition. I've never drawn her like this before, and we even have a metal edition. So these we're going to be starting our pre-sale for San Diego Comic Con. We're going to put 30 on our website and only 5 of these metal covers because there's only 20 metals and there's 99 of the regular pearl linen. It's on a pearl linen paper, and that's to be live starting on BillyTucci.com. You can go tomorrow and buy them, the pre-order, but there's only, like I said, 5 metal editions going to be available, and I think 30 of the regular editions.
And it's beautiful. I mean, this came out like now this is, yes, guys, this is a boudoir cover. This is, it is a topless lady, but it is a very classy,
I was so nervous drawing it.
Beautiful piece. Like, seriously, it came out. Like, I can't even give you a word on how amazing this piece came out. One of Billy's finest pieces of work here, and it's so limited.
Yeah, I think it's probably my favorite sheet drawing I've ever done.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about it. I was really nervous doing it, being Catholic too, Doug. I've never, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So I'm like, all right, why not? And I wanted to do a piece of art. I wanted to do She Is Fine Art. And I hope I did it. I got the original here.
Yeah.
Original with a little obi to, so here's the original art. And then we made a lithograph of it as well. So here's the litho. So it should be fun. So that's it. That's our San Diego, but we have lots of stuff. The Overstreet big price guide, 520 pages, the giant book. That she is on the cover of that, so we'll have that exclusively at San Diego Comic-Con. Lots of books, pins, trading cards. Man, I don't even know. The lady, the Vampirella She 50th anniversary San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, will have that too. And maybe Nile, I'll come back on Monday if you don't mind having me on. I'll be the guest, and I can tell you all about it, and I'll set everything up here on the table.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's get you on before you head out.
Yep. So anyway, I apologize, Doug. This is a crazy week for me. So and I wish you would come to San Diego. I really do. We would have a lot of fun. But next year you'll be there for sure.
That might be able to. I could probably do something like that with a little advance notice. I could definitely do that. So that'd be cool.
You should have your own booth, man.
Maybe. We'll see.
You never know.
With God, it's possible, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So, well, thank you, my friend. It was so great to meet you. Really, really, you're an extraordinary young man. I'm, really impressed with you. I really admire you, and especially, and of course, thank you for your service to this great nation of ours. And all the way, man. Go Army. And thank you.
Go Army, man.
And especially go Soulfinder, Demons Match.
Yes. There's, what is it, 3 days left?
It's 3 days left, and we're gonna extend it for a couple weeks as well while Brett finishes up.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Awesome. All right, everyone. So that's it. That's a wrap for this week of Crowdfunding Comics. We will be back on talking to Billy before he heads off to San Diego Comic-Con on Monday. So everyone have a great night. Everyone please say thank you to Doug. Make sure to hit the like. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to our channel, share our channel, subscribe to Doug's channel. The link is in the chat. And everyone have a wonderful night. We'll see you next week. Say bye.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, everybody.
All right, everyone have a great night. We'll see you.
Hey guys, thanks again for tuning into Crowdfunding Comics. We look forward to hanging out with all of our crowdfunding fans every time we go live. And don't forget to click the link below and subscribe to our channel. And there's a little bell. You may want to hit that too. This way you get all the great notifications when we go live and when we upload some awesome content. You want to follow us? Sure, go right ahead at Twitter at CrowdFundComics with an X, Instagram, Crowdfunding Comics, and Facebook at Crowdfunding Comics. Till next time, crowdfunding fans, we'll see you soon.